The following program is sponsored by CBN.
Well, I welcome you to the special election edition of the 700 Club. It's been a really tight race for the White House as we come on the air. And right now, Joe Biden seems to be leading in the Electoral College, but it looks like President Trump is on his way to victory, especially when you count Florida. It looks like he's winning Florida. We're not sure about the vote in Pennsylvania, whether they're going to allow all those votes to be counted in the Philadelphia area, but so far he's ahead. He's up a little bit in North Carolina and Georgia, but we're not sure about all the votes in Fulton County and DeKalb County in Georgia. But nevertheless, the race is going to be decided in the upper Midwestern states of Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and of course out west in Arizona. Now, we could see lawsuits over the election in most of these states. My prediction is that Trump is going to win, and he's going to do a tremendous job of it. And it looks like the Republicans are holding the Senate and are picking up a number of House races, especially here in the state of Virginia. Well, let's go over to our chief political analyst, David Brody. And David, give us the detail of what you see coming on right now.
Pat, I got to tell you, this is working out as best as possible for Donald Trump tonight. What we saw early on in Florida, in Miami-Dade County, was, let's be honest about it, Pat, it was historic. I mean, what he did in Miami-Dade, he got 45% of Miami-Dade County. Miami-Dade County, as you know, Pat, heavily Latino. 70% of that district or that county is Latino. He got 45%. He did 33% in 2016. So his numbers were up plus 12 in the most populous district in Florida. And that's why most likely when they call it later tonight or early in the morning, he's going to win Florida. And then, Pat, if we can go, and I don't know if we can take the map as we've been kind of showing throughout.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, please. Let me tell you and take you down to Michigan. In Michigan specifically, if you go to Wayne County in Detroit, I mean, I'm just looking at some of these numbers, Pat. He's doing 42% in Wayne County. That's staggering. That's a staggering number, considering the fact, and here we go. I just pulled it up right there. With about 44% in inner city, Wayne County, kind of Detroit, that area right there. Biden's only beating Trump by 13 points. In other words, he's doing better with African Americans tonight across the country. And if we can just go, Pat, if I can show you, as we go national and go down into Pennsylvania, let's go over to what I've been calling PA 20 tonight. Take a look at this, Pat. And here it is, down in Philadelphia County, 32% in. But look at Joe Biden's number, 77%. He's winning 77% of the African-American kind of vote there in Philadelphia County. Well, guess what? Everybody might say, well, that's great, isn't it? No. Hillary Clinton won 82% of that vote. So Joe Biden is down with African-Americans. He's down with Hispanics across the country right now. And that is why Donald Trump is winning Florida. He's probably going to end up winning North Carolina. He's winning Ohio. I mean, this is setting up pretty nicely for him tonight, Pat.
Well, David, we've been talking about the Hispanic vote, and has he been playing he said, we're never going to let this country become communist. And they just are looking at Castro when those Cuban Americans say we can't stand this. Then they look at Maduro and Nicaragua. They look at Venezuela. They look at these countries that have been destroyed by communism. And they've got Nicaragua, they've got Venezuela, then they've got Cuba. These Hispanics want freedom and they want safety. Well, what about this corona thing? You know, it looks like that's the big issue the Democrats have been playing, but Trump really has done a great deal more in corona than he's gotten credit for. It's his rhetoric is taking him down, not his actions.
Well, let me take both of those on, Pat. You're absolutely right. And especially on point one, where you're talking about Venezuela and the Cuban Americans, the Trump campaign has been telling me all along, they've been saying, David, I'm telling you, we're working that Venezuelan community, the Cuban American community down in Florida. They were determined to do well down there, and it paid major dividends tonight. For sure. So you're absolutely right, because that message, that anti-communist, if you will, message resonates with them. Obviously, it's personal for them. And as it relates to your second point about coronavirus, look, the exit polls show tonight that coronavirus, ready for this, Pat, was not the #1 issue. It was the economy. And we know pre-COVID that Donald Trump was doing pretty darn well on that issue. And you wonder if the Democrats have overplayed their hand potentially on the coronavirus. Politically, I'm talking about. We all know it's very dangerous. But politically on the coronavirus. And guess what? Remember how they kept talking about health care? Yeah. Number 6 on the list tonight for folks in the exit polls.
Pre-existing conditions. Well, now, let's look at Trump apparently has lost New Mexico, but he should be winning Arizona, and that is a key state, again, with the Hispanics. So have you got any figures on Arizona yet?
Well, Pat, I'm glad you asked that. We just checked in about 15 minutes ago on Arizona, and the big Maricopa County wasn't in. But let's go back there again, and let's just in real time take a look. There we are in Arizona. As we look at Maricopa, look at that, Pat. Maricopa County, if I click on it, well, here we go. We actually do have some figures. Biden is leading by about 10% or so, but we don't have final figures. That's in Maricopa County. So that's obviously the big county. And look, the way this is going to shape up for Biden tonight, if he doesn't win Florida and if he doesn't win North Carolina, then in essence, what's going to end up happening is that he's going to have to win somewhere else, which will be Arizona. And, Pat, we just understand now that Fox News has actually called Florida for Donald Trump. And so this is working out pretty well. Look, Joe Biden is going to have to do well in Arizona. Here's the problem. As we saw in Miami-Dade County tonight, Donald Trump's doing very well with Hispanic Americans, and that should bode well for him tonight in Arizona as well.
Well, it looks like Trump may well take Nevada, too. I mean, those casino workers, they're looking at a shutdown, but in Pennsylvania, that was a key state, and Biden really put his foot in the mouth when he said, I'm going to do away with fossil fuels. And there's so many people in Pennsylvania that are dependent on petroleum and depending on the oil products, and they'll be out of work. And have they stopped counting in Philadelphia? Is that the deal where they're not calling Pennsylvania yet?
Well, not yet in Philadelphia. Let's go to let's go to Pennsylvania real quick and take a look. And if you look down in Philadelphia County, and of course it's not just Philadelphia County, as you know, Pat, we've got Montgomery County and Bucks County, and some of that still has yet to come in. It's 34% still only reporting in Philadelphia County. But look in the upper left of the state, Erie County. We've done stories on the 700 Club about Erie County. Now, Erie County went for Obama in 2008, went for Obama in 2012, and then switched over to Trump in 2016. When we go to the map and we click on Erie County, well, look at this. Donald Trump winning by about, and I'm going to the raw total here, Pat, 8,000 votes. He won Erie County by 2,000 votes in 2016. So he's up 6,000 votes right now in a key county in Pennsylvania. That is good news for the Trump campaign.
Well, now, have they stopped counting? I mean, the idea is Philadelphia is not going to be reporting it. One of the guys in Philadelphia was sent to prison because he did some criminal acts. So have they got that thing cleaned up?
That's a good question, Pat. I got to tell you, I've been up to my eyeballs in other states and counties. And, you know, I need an Excedrin. That's okay. I'll take it at some point later tonight. But I don't know the latest on that specifically.
All right. Well, David, let me ask you also about Michigan.
Yeah.
Now, you're talking about Wayne County.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know Trump's been up to Grand Rapids, Traverse City, in that area. And it's strong Republican. Wayne County has got a large African-American population, and Trump, you say, is outperforming in that demographic?
He is. As a matter of fact, if we go to Michigan, let's take a look. And by the way, we have the latest here on Michigan. We look at that. Trump's up by 11 points right now in Michigan with about 43% of the vote reporting. Now, of course, we've still got quite a ways to go in Michigan. But let's look at Wayne County. Here we go, Pat. I'm clicking on it. And these are the real-time numbers. Donald Trump is at 42%, 116,000 votes so far out of Wayne County. That is an astounding number. He was at 30% in Wayne County in 2016. He's up 12 percentage points in 2020. And if we go quickly, so that's a big deal. And if you go to the right here, a little over to, let's go to Macomb County here, if I can eventually find it. I'm sure it's around here somewhere. There it is. Macomb County. Look at this number that Donald Trump is doing in the Reagan Democrat County. You know all about Macomb County.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
look at what Trump is doing, Pat. I mean, Trump is doubling Biden in Macomb County. Now, he won Macomb County solidly last time, but not by this much. I mean, his numbers are up. So what we're seeing tonight, Pat, is that it appears at this point, and we've got a ways to go, but it seems at this point that the ground game that the Trump campaign had talked about all along is coming to fruition. It is materializing, and now we just have to wait and maybe get an hour of sleep tonight.
David, you know, that's the blue wall for Biden. I mean, you're looking at Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, you know, possibly Minnesota. It looks like Trump has a real shot at Minnesota, even taking a Senate seat. Am I right there?
Yeah, well, Minnesota's pretty early right now. We can go there. I'll just double check Minnesota because I got to tell you, Minnesota was one of those states that Trump would need if things were not going well, but apparently things are going pretty well. So let's take a look at Minnesota. And Joe Biden, it's about over half the vote, and Biden leads by about 15 points. But once again, let's take a look. See, as you can see in Minneapolis, Hennepin County is all in there. So that's going to be a very liberal county. So a lot of red still to fill in Minnesota, especially in the northwestern part of Minnesota, which we know is Trump country. And what we're seeing tonight, Pat, is not just red on the map. We're seeing blood red on the map. And that makes all the difference in the world for sure.
Well, it's just astounding to me. I mean, now Wisconsin's pretty much the same thing. I mean, has he got a pretty good shot at Wisconsin?
Yeah, he's winning. He's winning in Wisconsin. I'll just double check that. He was winning, and it always changes. So let's just double check that. We're going to do this in real time. Here's Wisconsin. And indeed, Trump up by 4 points in Wisconsin with 60% of the vote in, and that's good news. In Madison, Wisconsin, look, 84% is in Madison. So that's good news for Trump because they're, well, how do we say this? A bunch of liberals over there. And you can just go on. So the bottom line is, things seem to be setting up pretty well for Donald Trump. And I'll say this, Pat, one of the key things for Trump, the big path tonight was you had to have Florida, you had to have North Carolina, you had to have the Georgia, the Sun Belt. He's probably going to get all of that. And then at that point, all you had to do is win Pennsylvania. Or he could even lose Pennsylvania, and all he has to do is get Michigan. So he just needs one of those Rust Belt states because everything else is filled in nicely in red. That's the way it's at least shaping up now.
We want to talk more to you if you'd hang around, but we said he had an excellent showing among Latinos in the Florida area and the critical counties of Miami-Dade, and he outperformed any expectations. And I felt that the Latino vote, because of the communist elements of what they have done to a country like Venezuela, which is just in desperate poverty, and what happened in Nicaragua, and of course what happened in Cuba under Castro. And we have right now with us a key man. He's Pastor Samuel Rodriguez. He's president of the National Hispanic Christian Leadership Conference. And Samuel, let me ask you, why are the Latinos in Florida responding so well to the president?
Hey, Pat, let me tell you this, Pat. Let me tell you this, Pat. Here's where we're at right now. At least 38% of Latinos. George W. Bush took 44% of the vote, of the Latino vote in 2004. We haven't seen these numbers since George W. Bush in 2004. This is 38% at least. Latinos in Florida, not just in Florida, but in Texas, and I would argue now Arizona, even in Pennsylvania, from Reading all the way down to Allentown, that Lancaster 222 route, Latinos have just emerged as America's firewall against socialism. Latinos just said no to socialism because we know Venezuela, Nicaragua, Bolivia, Cuba, Latinos know what the outcomes of socialism are. So Latinos just said no. The Hispanic community in America just emerged as the antidote to AOC's socialism, Bernie Sanders' socialism, the hard left socialism agenda. But it's not just socialism. Why did Latinos in Miami turn? It's not just socialism. It's late-term abortion. Latinos are the most pro-life community in America, according to Pew Research. So because this idea, this democratic obsession with abortion on demand, including late-term abortion, that's why Latinos gave Florida to President Trump. And we said no to the riots. No to socialism, no to late-term abortion, no to the riots, that's anarchy, and no to the perpetual lockdowns. You're going to see that this is the first day where the Republican Party, the conservative movement, just placed an engagement ring on the Latino community. We're not married yet, but it's the beginning of an interesting journey.
Well, the truth is that Latinos make up about 16 or 17% of the total population. African Americans are about 14%. So you're not the largest. I mean, you're the second largest ethnic group in the country. And when I look at the states, and you go all the way across the board, when you go from Florida and you go to Texas and you go to New Mexico and you go to Nevada and you go all the way across, this is going to be the most powerful voting group besides maybe the evangelicals, and they'll all be working together. Go ahead.
Pat, keep an eye on Nevada. Keep an eye on Nevada. We have an incredible amount of evangelical Latino churches in Nevada, mega churches. Matter of fact, the president attended one of our churches with one of our pastors recently. Keep an eye on Nevada. And again, Pennsylvania, from Reading, from Lancaster, all the way to my home city of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, where I was raised, there are a bunch of Puerto Ricans and Dominicans who attend Bible-believing churches. So because of this anti-socialism, this let's defend life in the womb and out of the womb, this commitment to limited government and this pushback on the riots, you're going to see Latinos, I would argue, Latinos may very well be the reason why President Trump will once again emerge as president of the United States and gain this second term. It may be que viva la resistance, que viva la revolución.
Viva la revolución. All right. Well, they say in Spanish, my brother, nos vemos. Hasta mañana.
Hasta mañana.
God bless you. All right. Well, let's take a look now at what John Waggy has got. John, talk about the House. I've seen some House races. I mean, for example, Nick Freitas in the 7th District won a term. It looks as if we're going to have a Democrat here in the 2nd District of Virginia. What's happening in the House?
Pat, I don't really know. I know that the networks have one network has called the House for the Democrats again this year. I'm still, I guess, not ready to concede right now because there are too many outstanding races and the votes still need to be counted. And there's some strange things going on tonight, it seems. So we'll have to wait until the counts come further in.
I'm not believing. You said that the Republicans will flip the House. I didn't agree with you on that, but we'll stay, as they say, agnostic and see about it. But we're looking. You said 17 races. There are a whole lot of people in Orange County, California. We haven't even gotten to California.
That's right. The polls are just closing there.
Yeah, they could very well come in. But here in Virginia, there are a number of races already in the House where there has been a change, a dramatic change up and down the line, including the 2nd District here where we live.
That's right, Pat. And those races, they've been the Republicans in several districts had big leads, and they were still in the vote counting process when we went to air with when I was doing the other states with David. So I haven't seen an update for a while on those House races. But Virginia, very strange things were going on.
All right, well, let's talk then. If you don't have all the House, how about the Senate? It looks like Susan Collins may well pull it off in Maine. You thought she might lose. Corey Gardner is clearly going down to Hickenlooper, like you predicted,
right.
In Colorado.
It's not looking great for Joni Ernst right now in Iowa.
I'm surprised because, you know, she would. Well, how about McSally in Arizona? Is she going to take it?
She's not winning with the vote that's been counted so far, Pat. But President Trump's down in Arizona as well. It's interesting. There seems to be a parallel with McSally and President Trump in Arizona, and President's deficit in Iowa, along with Joni Ernst's deficit. So it may be that the counties that are still coming in will, you know, push them forward. But it's not looking too good for either one of those right now. John James, on the other hand, in Michigan, is doing quite well now, and pending, you know, further counts, he's got a pretty decent lead on his opponent, Gary Peters.
You've got some other races, though, that you were looking at in the Senate. There's a race in Montana. We haven't heard too much about Gaines.
No, we haven't heard about Steve Daines in Montana running against the current governor, Steve Bullock. And so we've also got in Minnesota, that race tightened up considerably between Jason Lewis and the incumbent Tina Smith. I haven't seen results on that, but I know that currently Minnesota is running behind for President Trump, and it's probably that way with the Minnesota Senate race. But those are still outstanding races, and so it isn't a lost cause for the Republicans by any means right now.
Well, Mitch McConnell had a tremendous race against him. He heavily funded woman, and he won that race in Kentucky. And it looks like they're calling it in South Carolina for Lindsey Graham.
That's right, and I understand he's made an acceptance speech. So he will be. I think he returns, Pat, to become the budget chairman if the Republicans keep the Senate. Well,
you know, he's done a great job in judiciary, but you've got. I'm trying to think. You've got Tommy Tuberville. He's a coach
as expected, he will be the new senator-elect from Alabama. So right now, the Republicans are still holding on to the Senate, but there are some iffy races yet to come tonight.
But do you think Susan Collins is going to hold on? I mean, you thought she might go down in Maine.
I had predicted her to lose, but she was never more than about 2 or 3 points down. She's been within the margin of error in a lot of the polls, so it's possible, you know, for her to hold on to it. But all of these are still really tight. But John James could help the Republicans too.
Yeah, he's a tremendous candidate. And if the things work out in Michigan, like we were talking about with David, with Wayne County and those other counties in Michigan, it's astounding how Trump is performing. What is your take on the fact? I mean, you know, African Americans, I mean, he's been saying, I've done more for African Americans than everybody except Abraham Lincoln. I mean, do you think the African Americans are responding to that?
I do think so, to an extent, Pat, and I think especially among African American males, I think that they are responding more to the message now that we've been in the Democrats' pocket for the last 60, 70 years, and what has it really gotten us? I think that a lot of rappers and other people have been raising that issue and raising that question, and I think that it's telling in the vote, at least to an extent, and we'll have to wait till we see what's completed. But from Michigan and from Philadelphia County and some other places, it looks like that is a factor in this race.
Well, John, we want to hear some more of you, but I think we've got some more going on. John and Jenna have got something else for us, so I'll throw it to you guys.
That's right. Thank you, Pat. Well, Pennsylvania is considered one of the most important states in this election, along with Michigan, Wisconsin, and Arizona. And they all have one thing in common, Pat, and that is we may not know their results until several days yet. And one reason why is because of the huge mail-in voting.
Yeah, the Supreme Court recently ruled that Pennsylvania can allow mail-in ballots up to 3 days after the election, as long as they're postmarked by today. Political analysts, of course, are pointing to what happened in the New York primary earlier this year as a sneak peek of what we could see this time around.
Well, Pennsylvania is one of the most important states in this election, along with Michigan, Wisconsin, and Arizona. So one thing we have in common, we might not know the results for several days. And so I think that's it. And Jenna, the Supreme Court had a ruling that you might want to talk about, too.
Yeah, the Supreme Court recently ruled that Pennsylvania can allow mail-in ballots up to 3 days after the election, as long as they're postmarked by today. As I mentioned, political analysts, though, they're pointing to that New York primary earlier this year as really, I mean, that could be what we see happen this time around. We'll have to wait and see.
All right.
I suspect the most likely kind of post-election litigation is over the rejection of absentee ballots. Again, going back to the New York primary, 1 in 5 ballots were rejected by election officials for not complying with state legal requirements, and litigation was then filed contesting the rejection of those absentee ballots. And I suspect that's the same kind of litigation we might see after the general election.
Okay.
Your thoughts on that?
All right. Well, Jace Sekulow we tried to get him to come to a board meeting at Regent University. He said, I've got legal work for the president. I think there are any number of lawsuits that are going on. There have to be poll watchers. And the thought that somebody might try to steal the election. And the biggest problem that we've got is that if we do not know who the winner is, and this thing is dragged out for several days, it's going to lead to chaos in our country. So let's go back over to Dave Brody. He's on top of some of these other situations. And tell us about Pennsylvania again.
Well, Pat, there's so much to talk about. This is fascinating here. If I can go to the big map, that's what I've been calling it all night, Pat, I've decided. It's called the big map. And let's go to Pennsylvania. And when we go to Pennsylvania, look at Philadelphia County. That's where I go right away. And that number for Biden, I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but it just keeps dropping. Philadelphia County, heavily African-American county. Hillary Clinton did 82% in this county. Biden was at 80%, then he was at 77%. His number keeps dropping. It's now at 76%. That is just a problem for him in Pennsylvania. And Pat, if I can just go over to Wisconsin, wait till you see this number, Pat. Let's go over to the national map and then go into Wisconsin, which right now Donald Trump leads by about 5,000 votes. But look at Milwaukee County, once again, African-American county. And as we click on it, okay, Joe Biden has look at the raw vote count there, between 123,000 and 81,000. So it's about 40,000 votes or so that he's beating Trump. Well, guess what? I just did the math. In 2016, Donald Trump lost Milwaukee County by 160,000 votes. He's only losing Milwaukee County, Pat, by 40,000 votes. That's 120,000 votes he made up in predominantly African-American county, Milwaukee County. Pat, the story tonight is Miami-Dade and Hispanics turning out there, and most likely in Arizona and other places. Pennsylvania, Sammy Rodriguez said. And the African-American vote is way down for Joe Biden in Philadelphia, in that area, in Milwaukee, and also in Cleveland, and quite frankly, in a few other places, too.
Thanks, David. We're going to bring you back with more of the key races. We're going to give you the numbers of where we stand right now on the presidential. And we'll be back with more of tonight's special election update and with a look at the top issue for many voters, the economy.
And welcome back to the special coverage of the 2020 election. I'm John Jessup here with Jenna Browder. Just a quick update on some of these close races. Right now, the electoral vote with President Trump is 118 against his competitor is 209. Still many races to be called. Some of the Senate races, Democrats right now have 44 seats. Republicans have 45. There's still a number of House races that are to be contested. And just to update, Fox News has called the Arizona race for Mark Kelly. Mark Kelly defeats incumbent Senator Martha McSally in Arizona. And one last update, Donald Trump is called as the winner of the state of Utah. Jenna.
Well, there are a lot of issues voters had to contend with this election. The economy is once again the #1 concern for many of them. And recently, the Gallup poll asked a slightly different question of the Ronald Reagan question that he famously asked during his 1980 debate with President Jimmy Carter. Would you say you and your family are better off now than you were 4 years ago, or are you worse off now? Well, 56% said yes, while 32% said no. With so many people rating the economy as the top issue, that likely helped President Trump at the polls today. But some experts warn that Joe Biden's plan could hurt the economy. For more on that, let's go back over to Pat.
Well, a friend that's been on this show and a tremendous economist is Steve Moore. And Steve is with us. He's an advisor to the Trump campaign. And Steve, let's talk about Biden's economic plans. He claims that it's centrist. He claims he's not a part of the Green New Deal. But is he giving way to Bernie Sanders, who has spent his honeymoon in communist Russia? What do you think?
Hi, Pat. Well, by the way, you've heard the expression, it's the economy stupid, right? And I think that these results that are coming in tonight really show that I think one of the things that's really turned this election around from 2 weeks ago when it looked like it was going to be a Biden blowout was the good news on the economy, Pat. You know, we got that spectacular number on the growth of the GDP, which was the all-time record, and then we got really good numbers on the unemployment rate, continuing to come down with more and more millions of Americans getting into jobs, and I think that's been a key factor. This race is not over by any means, but right now it looks like President Trump is the favorite, and I think it's mostly because of the economy. I heard you discussing Hispanic voters. Hispanic voters have done very well under Donald Trump. The Hispanic poverty rate fell to its lowest level ever last year under Trump. Hispanic incomes grew to their highest level. So I think that's kind of the story here. And the other story is that Biden is, embraced a very left-wing agenda. You mentioned the Green New Deal. How do you win Pennsylvania and Ohio by promising to destroy 500,000 jobs there that are related to the oil and gas industry, and the same thing in Texas and Oklahoma and so on. So I think Biden really foolishly embraced a very left-wing Bernie Sanders agenda.
Well, Steve, this Green New Deal, are they actually going to engineer all of the office buildings, and they're going to cut out airplanes, and they're going to cut out automobiles? I mean, what are they going to? We're talking about trillions and trillions of dollars. And AOC and some of this group are seemingly driving the whole agenda.
So this is, I believe, one of the more foolish ideas of the left, which is to destroy the American oil and gas industry. And they've done that with the coal industry. They've cut our coal industry in half, and tens of thousands of American coal miners have lost their job. Now they're coming back after the oil and gas industry. By the way, Pat, at the very time the United States has become energy independent, and we are a net exporter of oil and gas these days, and that's a really important thing for the U.S. economy to be able to see our very low energy prices. The way I put it, if you want $4 and $5 a gallon gasoline, vote for Joe Biden, because he's going to give it to you. And I think the American people understand energy independence is a very important thing for America.
We were looking at the corporate tax, and America's tax on corporations was one of the highest in the world. Trump has brought that down to more manageable levels, and so Biden is slamming away that all Trump cares about is millionaires. But it looks like what he's going to do is tax. He said, I won't tax anybody except those making, whatever it is, a couple $100,000 a year or more. But the truth is, he really plans about $4 trillion in tax raises, doesn't he?
This, I think, was a big mistake for the Biden campaign, was to campaign on the largest tax increase in the history of the United States. And, you know, you don't have to be an economist to understand that higher taxes are bad for the economy, not good for the economy. And you mentioned the corporate tax. We've talked about this many times on the 700 Club, you and I, that, you know, we lowered that corporate tax rate to make America more competitive so that more business would be here, more factories would come back to the United States from Mexico and China and other countries. And boy, did that work. It was quite successful. We brought $1 trillion of capital back, and Biden wants to raise the tax rates up again. I think that's not just bad economics, that's unpatriotic, because the people who benefit from that are, you know, the people outside of the United States. It hardly puts America first. So, Pat, I think the big story here right now, and look, again, we don't know how this whole thing is going to turn out, but I think it's pretty clear that the American people have not embraced Biden's very left-wing agenda. As I said, he really took a lot of the Bernie Sanders agenda. Bernie Sanders said the other day, when Joe Biden is elected, because they thought Biden was going to win, he would be the most progressive president in American history. You know, American people don't want that.
Well, do you think he's a stalking horse? Biden is a stalking horse for the left, that Kamala Harris is really the most liberal senator in the whole United States Senate. She just laughed at it, but when she was asked that by a 60 Minutes reporter, but she really is, isn't she? I mean, she embraces all of this left-wing stuff, which would raise taxes and cripple the economy.
Well, you know, you have to embrace that if you're going to be the most liberal senator in the U.S. Senate. By the way, she's to the left of Bernie Sanders. I mean, that's pretty hard to do. How do you get to the left of Bernie Sanders? But she found a way to do it. And so I think the American people have rejected that ticket. I'm just surprised the Democrats have moved so far to the left. I looked at every Democratic platform from 1960 through this year. And you know, think about the people who've run. That's been Walter Mondale and George McGovern and Jimmy Carter and Hillary Clinton. And Biden's agenda is way to the left of any of those. So I just was surprised the Democrats did not run as a kind of moderate party. They ran as radical left-wing progressivism. And I pray tonight that the American people and the American voters have rejected that agenda, because it would cause millions of Americans to lose their job. And it would I think, if Biden were to win, I think the United States would surrender our economic superpower status to China, because we'd be doing so much damage to our own economy.
Do you give any credence to this business about Hunter Biden and the money from China, that when Biden was asked who the greatest threat to America is, he stalled for a while, then he said, I think it's Russia. He wouldn't mention China. Do you think there's any credence in some of that stuff that was on the New York Post, but it's been debunked by so many on the left? What do you think?
I think it certainly hurt Biden in the last couple of weeks. You know, I'm not an expert on that story, but I'll just turn it back to the economy and just say that there's no question that the leaders and the communist leaders in China would love to have Joe Biden be the next president, not Donald J. Trump, because Biden has been a patsy when it comes to China for 30, 40 years. And, you know, he's even said China is no threat to us. Well, you and I know, and I think the American people know, that China is a great threat to us, both militarily and through their predatory economic and trade practices. So, you know, if you want China to take over, I guess Joe Biden would be your man. But this is really an amazing comeback that we're seeing tonight. I'm really proud of this guy. You know, as you mentioned earlier, I've worked with him for 4 years now. You know, 2 or 3 weeks ago, remember, Pat, they were saying it's going to be a massive blue wave and they're going to win every race in the country and they're going to take over all the state legislatures and so on. And you know, we don't know who's going to win this presidential race, although I think Trump is going to win. But there's no blue wave here, no blue wave whatsoever, because Trump made an amazing comeback and he outworked Joe Biden.
Steve, I tell you, I ran for president, and I know what it is to get up there and make those speeches. the day after, he looked like he was unperturbed. He didn't show any signs of fatigue. He preached hour after hour after hour after hour and went to state after state. How in the world do you think he did it? It was extraordinary.
I'll tell you the answer to that question, Pat. Donald J. Trump is a freak of nature. The guy is inexhaustible. I mean, I'm 14 years younger than he is, and I couldn't keep up with him on the campaign trail. So he's amazing. He loves it. He loves the American people. He loves to get out in front of those crowds and have fun with the audience. And he's one of the most amazing persons I've ever met. And in that way, he's very much like Ronald Reagan. Reagan loved people, and so does Donald J. Trump. And I know you love people too, Pat.
Sure do, man. Well, Steve, thank you so much. And this election, you want my predictions? Trump's going to win it. It'll be a blowout. And I think that all the way up and down the line, it's going to be a resounding victory. So, Steve Moore, thank you so much. Please come back. We love having you with us.
Thanks, and I pray that you're right. All right.
Well, trust me, I am right. All right, let's go back over to Dave Brody. He has an important update.
Pat, it's a very important update, and it's good news for Joe Biden. This race may have just now seesawed a little bit. Arizona, Fox is calling Arizona for Joe Biden. All right, so now, let's go into the numbers now. We have just gotten a bit more complicated, especially if Trump, it was going along nicely for Trump, and then boom, Arizona hit. Let's go to Arizona. If we can go to the big map real quick. And here we are, Arizona. Take a look at this, Pat. Arizona, if you go into Maricopa County, that's the big county right by Phoenix. Look at those numbers by Joe Biden tonight. He won Maricopa County, at least at this point, by about 150,000 votes. Donald Trump won Maricopa County 4 years ago by 40,000 votes. So that's what, about 190,000 vote difference. And so that is the difference in Arizona. So I tell you what does that mean? Well, let me tell you what that means. It means more of a headache for all of us, for sure. But let's go to this map, all right? And this is my little interactive map. I trot this out here at 11:30 at night. Look at the top here. Let's say this is where the race is now, okay? And what the reason I'm saying it's 228 Trump, let's say 227 Biden. Let's go to the map. I'm going to give Trump Florida because we assume he's going to win Florida, even though that technically hasn't, well, actually, it has been called, I believe, by Fox. Is that right? But AP hasn't called it. So he's got Florida. But now look, if he's at 228 and Arizona down here, Pat, has gone to Biden, how does Trump get to 270? Well, let's go through it. Let's give him North Carolina. Let's put that in red. He's at 243. Should we give him Iowa? I guess we'll give him Iowa. That puts him at 249. Well, look at this, Pat. Let's give him Pennsylvania, and oh boy, we have a tie at 269. If he wins Michigan, there you go. He can win both. But here's the thing. If we go ahead and just get out of all of that, and let's say he doesn't win Pennsylvania and he only wins Michigan, he's still short. He would have to win Wisconsin as well. The point simply being is that somehow, some way, he's got to probably now win 2 of the 3 Rust Belt states. Before it was just Pennsylvania. It was moving that way. Now it's become tougher. He's got to win 2 of the 3, Wisconsin and Michigan, Michigan and Pennsylvania, whatever you want to do. And over here is Nevada. That could be a wild card in all of this, because if Nevada goes red for Trump, then it makes it easier. The bottom line is we got a more complicated map all of a sudden because Joe Biden just won Arizona.
You've made it more difficult so people can't sleep as well. So, in other words, we won't know the winner till tomorrow morning, maybe.
Yeah, for sure.
But Sammy Rodriguez said he thought, without question, we're going to win Nevada, that there's Hispanics who are going to. And also, I understand those casino workers are so afraid that Biden will shut the casinos down that they'll lose their jobs. So
well, and Pat, one interesting part here, and I'm curious to see what Nevada is going to look like, because the Trump campaign, when I've asked them about Arizona, this was their tone. Yeah, I think we're going to win Arizona. It was that. Whereas with Nevada, they were like, we actually feel good about Nevada. So they were more confident about Nevada than Arizona all along. I think we're seeing some of that tonight. We'll see if Nevada is actually a key state that could maybe put Trump over the top. Wouldn't that be a kick Interesting.
Well, you know, when I was running for the nomination, I must say I won Nevada and I won Vegas, and among my delegates, one was a pit boss, another was a cocktail waitress. So great people in Vegas. All right. Well, thanks, John. It's been a fun evening so far, but tomorrow we're going to have to wait to see exactly what's going to happen. I really believe that Pennsylvania is going to go for Trump, and North Carolina and Nevada. John Waggy, what is your prognostication to keep the White House?
Well, I'll tell you, David covered it pretty well. He's got to win two of those big states, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Minnesota's still outstanding. He's got to get some votes in the upper Midwest now. And, of course, Nevada would help in the math. I think it's 4 electoral votes, but it's going to be tight. And I know on the Senate, Pat, there is it looks like Joni Ernst has pulled back into the lead from the last that we can see, and also Susan Collins is leading in Maine as of the latest check. So Republicans may still cling on by their fingernails to the Senate, but we won't know that probably tonight either.
You've got a potential in Michigan, John James, and you've also got one in Minnesota, possibly, right?
That's right. That's right. And right now, Minnesota is colored light blue on the map, so I guess that means that President Trump is behind in Minnesota. But if he can bring Jesse Lewis with him, I know Lewis did an amazing charge in the polls over the last 10 days. Whether the polls are correct or not, we'll find out later this evening, I think. But also on the House races, Pat, I did want to mention that Scott Taylor is leading Luria here in the 2nd District of Virginia, and also Donna Shalala lost her seat tonight to a Hispanic American woman in I believe it's the 17th district.
She was the high priestess of political correctness when she was chancellor out there in Wisconsin.
Yes.
Well,
yeah.
Let's turn now. What about the role of Christians in this election? And let's go back over to John and Jenna to see what they can tell us about that.
We'll have more on that in just a moment, but a quick update on some of these races. We want to mention that Fox News has called, actually, let me retract that. Fox News projects that the state of Ohio will go to President Trump. The state of Ohio, again, Fox News is calling for Donald Trump. There are also a couple of Senate races that we'd like to highlight. The most recent is Cindy Hyde-Smith. For Mississippi, she will retain her seat in Mississippi, and Kelly Loeffler will go off in the runoff and take on the Democratic challenger. His name is the Reverend Raphael Warnock. He will challenge Kelly Loeffler in the runoff. Jenna.
It also looks like Susan Collins will hold on to her seat in Maine as well. But Pat, to your point, one of President Trump's most important constituencies, and one that definitely helped power him to victory in 2016, is white evangelicals. The president won 81% of those Christians, and he's aggressively courted them again this year. But some political analysts have questioned whether or not the president can repeat that performance this time around. Pat?
The evangelicals have been voting about 88%, 83 to 85% for freedom. And I know Ralph Reed and his group have done an amazing job of working that. But David Brody, you've been keeping an eye on the Catholic vote as well as the evangelical vote. What do you think about Catholics?
Well, we're seeing Donald Trump do very well in many of these Catholic counties. That's what I call them, because they're heavily Catholic in Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania. I won't go through all the numbers, and we'll forget the map for now. Just suffice to say that Donald Trump is overperforming in Catholic counties, especially many of those white Catholic. You know, Donald Trump won white Catholics by 23 points over Hillary Clinton in 2016. It'd be interesting to see the number. You know, Joe Biden's team did a lot of outreach to Catholics this time around. Joe Biden, of course, being a Catholic. And so we'll wait to see the final numbers. But so far, so good, at least, it seems, in those Rust Belt states. As for evangelicals, Pat, let me give you some numbers. I'll try to keep it very simple. But in 2016, 33 million evangelicals voted. What Ralph Reed and others hope is that 5 million more evangelicals will show up this time around in 2020. So their magic number is about 38 million. Can 5 million more evangelicals show up this time around? If that happens from a raw voter turnout perspective, the president should win. So we wait and see. I will say this, Pat, what's interesting, about 20 million evangelicals in this country just don't vote. And about half of those 20 million aren't even registered to vote. So there's something to think about.
Well, we're told to render to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. And Caesar, what belongs to him is honest, informed citizenship. So we appreciate it. But that Faith and Freedom Coalition has done an incredible job. Not to mention the ground game that the president's put in effect. They have done at least 10 million door-to-door interviews, and Biden has not had a ground game even close to that. And I just think, David, the evangelicals are to the Republican Party what the labor unions used to be for the Democrats. It's just sort of a very reliable bloc, right?
Well, 100%. And obviously Donald Trump needs the evangelicals, or as he would say, I need the evangelicals. We talk like that because he loves the evangelicals, so to speak. And apparently they love him back as well. What I'm being told, Pat, is that the evangelicals that the Ralph Reed's group, the Faith and Freedom Coalition, the ones that they have reached out to, if those evangelicals have not gone to the polls on Election Day, look, Ralph Reed's group has their numbers, literally their cell phone numbers, and they're getting text every couple hours. And it's get to the polls. Can you imagine getting a text every 2 hours? Have you gone to the polls yet? Have you gone to? So that's the type of ground game that's going on across the country tonight.
Well, it's been an amazing election, folks, and we'll be back with more right after a quick break. We're about to wrap up this particular election night edition of the 700 Club, but I want to get the final figures that we can leave you with tonight, and then we'll be back on the air tomorrow, and hopefully we'll have some more information. But John Waggy, tell us about the latest figures, the Senate, the Republicans, and what's the story?
Right. Well, the recent news that Susan Collins has held on in Maine means that the Republicans have net lost 2 seats as of this moment, and Alabama has gone to the Republicans. So they're down a seat. But you still have John James in Michigan. Nothing has been called there. He was in the lead. And so there's Joni Ernst has been in the lead. So there's still a possibility that they could keep it with 0 losses in the Senate. But they've got some tight races. And I know that in Montana, Steve Daines is narrowly trailing the current governor, Steve Bullock, by about 2,000 votes. So that one's a dead heat right now. And of course, other state results are coming in there. So it's still tight, but they still are holding on to the Senate as of this moment.
Any more word on the House?
Nothing in terms of, except that Fox has called the House for the Democrats. Nothing in terms of actual numbers.
Okay, well, I'm sure. I figured I would have called it for the Democrats too, but it's a question of how many, and they haven't had California yet.
No.
We'll go one more time over to David, and good news for the president tonight. Another major state. What else you got?
Yeah, Texas is now gone for Donald Trump. It's pretty sad from Republican circles that it took this late to call Texas, but. Anyhow, it's in the Trump column, so that's, I guess, all that matters for Republicans and Trump. So, he's doing well across the Sun Belt. That's exactly what he needed to do. Georgia will probably be called here in a little bit, and it'll set Trump up nicely. And once again, where are we left at the end of the evening? The Rust Belt. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Now we wait. The good news for Donald Trump is that Joe Biden is underperforming in Milwaukee County, which is in Wisconsin, obviously, and then he's underperforming in Philadelphia County in Pennsylvania, and he's underperforming in Wayne County, which is in that Detroit, Michigan area. The fact that Joe Biden could not appeal as well to African Americans, that could be the big story of this election if Donald Trump ends up winning at some point in the near future. Who knows when that's going to be, Pat?
Thanks, David. Well, to address our Spanish brothers, buenas noches, and as we say, nos vemos. See you later. Bye-bye. Man, what an election. Ladies and gentlemen, we had one for the record books, and the day after, we still don't know for certain who the winner is in a razor-thin race for the White House. Now, it's a waiting game, and 5 states hold the keys to victory. How long will it take before we know who won? Well, Gary Lane has some explanation for us.
5 states hold the key to victory for the president and Joe Biden. All eyes are on Georgia, North Carolina, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. So far, the early tallies show the president holding the lead in all 5, but mail-in ballots could narrow his lead. President Trump won the big states of Florida, Ohio, and Texas, but Joe Biden surprised the president by winning the states of Arizona and Minnesota.
We believe we're on track to win this election. We knew because of the unprecedented early vote and the mail-in vote that it's going to take a while. We're going to have to be patient until the hard work of tallying the votes is finished. And it ain't over till every vote is counted.
Late Tuesday night, the president declared election victory and warned of ballot tampering.
This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election.
He pledged to take legal challenges over questionable vote counting all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. Faith and Freedom Coalition founder and chairman Ralph Reed predicts the president will be re-elected, and evangelical Christian voters will make the difference.
I believe we're going to see the largest turnout of conservative Christian and evangelical voters in American history, and I think they're going to give Donald Trump a higher level of support than they did 4 years ago.
National Hispanic Christian Leadership Conference President Sam Rodriguez says pro-life Latino voters gave the president the margin of victory he needed in Florida.
Latinos have just emerged as America's firewall against socialism. Latinos just said no to socialism.
Economist Stephen Moore agrees. He says many voters rejected the extreme leftist economic policies of the Democrats.
How do you win Pennsylvania and Ohio by promising to destroy 500,000 jobs there that are related to the oil and gas industry, and the same thing in Texas and Oklahoma and so on? So I think Biden really foolishly embraced a very left-wing Bernie Sanders agenda.
Meanwhile, initial vote tallies for the U.S. Senate show Republicans maintaining their majority. In Kentucky, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell won re-election, and South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham defeated Democratic challenger Jamie Harrison. In Alabama, Tommy Tuberville defeated Democratic incumbent Doug Jones, and Republican Tom Tillis is leading in North Carolina. But Republicans lost seats in Colorado and Arizona. As for the House of Representatives, so far Republicans have picked up 4 seats, including Florida District 27. That's where Maria Elvira Salazar defeated Democrat incumbent Donna Shalala in Miami-Dade County. But they're expected to fall short of the 17 needed to win a majority. Baseball legend Yogi Berra said it ain't over until it's over, and that's so true this election year, as many congressional races and the presidential race are yet to be determined because of those millions of ballots cast by mail. In some states, the counting will continue for several more days. In North Carolina, counting won't officially end until November 12th. And legal challenges over ballot counting mean some final results may remain unknown, possibly for weeks. Gary Lane, CBN News.
Well, when we heard, of course, the president took Florida, and people couldn't believe Miami-Dade, and I knew it was the Hispanics in Miami-Dade who don't like Castro. They didn't like what's happening in Venezuela, and they came out very, very strong for Trump, and he won Florida going away, and that was a big win for him. The key state that he had to hold was Ohio, and there were many people thinking he was going to lose Ohio, and lo and behold, when you got down near Cincinnati and that part of the state, he took that county and that state, and that was in doubt. So it was a big win for him. But now there's still, the Electoral College is dependent on a few states that have not yet been determined. I mean, the Electoral College, you see the red states and the blue states, and there they are. But in any event, Nevada's up in the air, Georgia's up, North Carolina, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. And if he has those, he will go ahead and he'll win. Otherwise, well, we just don't know. Yes.
I don't understand why a state has to count votes until November 12th.
It's wrong. They shouldn't have done it. And there was he made an appeal to the Supreme Court, Trump did, that they should finish the counting, and they ought to have everything counted by election. Okay, it isn't right to hold this thing open because, again, you're asking for fraud. Mm-hmm. You know, they used to do that down in Texas. There was one county, and they would figure out how much Lyndon Johnson needed to win, and then the judge, I think it was Parr down there, would decide, all right, we'll put in 5 more votes, and we'll keep voting, we'll keep adding until he wins the election. We can't have that. Well, Chief Political Analyst David Brody is here to take us through what happens next. David, in your analysis, who do you think has the best chance of reaching 270, and how do they get there?
Well, honestly, Pat, it's a great question. I wish I could tell you. I don't want to punt on this, but if this is like neutral and Biden is this way and Trump is this way, it's just like this. I mean, we just don't know. Is there a path for the president? Absolutely. He'll probably win Georgia. He'll probably win North Carolina. That's going to take him to about 248. And you can see it there. And then he's got to win Pennsylvania. And at this point, most likely a second Rust Belt state, either Michigan or Wisconsin. At this point, it looks like the best scenario for the president is to win, as I said, Georgia, North Carolina, and then win Pennsylvania and Michigan. He would have to win 2 of the 3. Now, Nevada is the wild card in all this. He's very close out there. The Trump campaign likes where they're at. So you can make the argument that Nevada could be a huge difference here, Pat. And I think what we saw late last night, it was going very, very well for Trump. And it did go well for Trump overall. But when Arizona was called for Biden, that shook the race up. And that's why Trump's going to have to scramble here a little bit. And so we wait and see. All I know is this: Donald Trump overperformed last night. The media and the pollsters poorly underperformed. And I think that, for sure, is the main takeaway.
Without question. All right, now let's talk for a minute about Pennsylvania. What's the status in Philadelphia? Is there potential fraud in Philly?
Well, that's what they're looking at. And Pennsylvania, it's not just Philadelphia County, Pat. I mean, that is one area that they're looking at. But let's talk about Pennsylvania for a moment, because we heard the president talk about that he's going to fight this and he's going to go all the way to the Supreme Court. What does he mean exactly? He's talking specifically about Pennsylvania. There's other states, too. But remember, Pennsylvania is allowing, as you've talked about, as Gary's talked about, you can allow for 3 days of mail-in ballots to come in after the election. Here's the problem with this, and this is what the president is saying. The actual ruling by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court says that these ballots that are coming in, these are mail-in ballots, they're in prepaid envelopes. And guess what? Basically, these prepaid envelopes don't all have a postmark on them. That's the issue. In other words, the Pennsylvania, the United States Postal Service is going to, quote, do their best to postmark all of these mail-in ballots, but there's no guarantee that any of them will be postmarked because prepaid envelopes don't come with a postmark. And so this is what the president's saying. He's like, wait a minute, hold on. You're going to hold open the vote for 3 days, and you don't even know if there's a postmark on there? Well, what in the world? What if someone wants to drop in a few thousand ballots at the last moment? The integrity of the system is under attack, according to the president, and that's what he's going to do. He's going to fight in Pennsylvania. I would also mention, Pat, I don't know if you saw this, about a week ago, the Pennsylvania Attorney General actually said Donald Trump is going to lose if every vote is counted. Well, hold on. The Attorney General of the state of Pennsylvania is already predicting Donald Trump losing. I mean, it was political malpractice, and it was a moral statement for sure. And this is the type of stuff that Trump is talking about.
You're looking at a couple of other states, Wisconsin and Michigan. He looks pretty good in Michigan now, doesn't he?
Yeah, he actually looks better in Michigan than Wisconsin. And why exactly? Well, as we talked about last night for a few hours here, the African-American vote was actually better for him in Michigan, actually, than it was in Wisconsin. You know, it's been kind of all over the place, but the African-American vote overall has been good for Donald Trump. There are some exit polls showing that overall nationally, the black male vote, which was 13%. I'm not talking about the black vote overall. Let's start from the beginning. The black vote overall in 2016 was 8%. But inside that number, the black male vote was about 13% in 2016. This time around, it's about 18%. The black female vote was only 4% for Donald Trump in 2016. The exit polls show it was double this time, 8%. So that is helping him in Wayne County, which is in Detroit, or Detroit, which is in Wayne County. In Wisconsin, a little bit of a different story. Milwaukee County now edging toward, or not edging toward, but with Biden with a pretty solid lead. That's why Biden could very well win Wisconsin.
Well, you look at Nevada, for example, heavy Hispanics, and the casino operators were thinking that Biden might shut the whole thing down and would ruin their entire industry. And I thought Nevada was going to go for Trump straight out, but it's still in play. Why?
Well, it is in play, and if you look deeper, as I look deeper at the numbers, we've got about 75% of Clark County reporting. That's in that Vegas area, typically Democrat, but once again, Trump making inroads there. So we wait to see what Clark County does. I mean, there's other parts of the state that are outstanding at this point, but that's where we're looking. That's what you're talking about with that Las Vegas worker and many of the Hispanics out there in Florida. It's a different Hispanic subset, if you will, out in Nevada compared to what we saw in Miami-Dade County in Florida. You know, Miami-Dade, Cuban-American, a Venezuelan community. Not as much. There is that out there in Arizona, but not, or excuse me, in Nevada, but not as much heavily concentrated in Florida. And that was a big key to victory in Florida for the president.
Oh, when it's all shaken down, how do you call it? I know you say it's a little back and forth. What's your gut say on that?
I got to tell you, my gut says Trump barely. Barely. And what I mean by that, and why do I say that? I mean, look, the Pennsylvania number is up 600,000 in Pennsylvania. I know there are a lot of votes to count, but that's a lot to overcome. And even if Pennsylvania somehow goes south, he's going to take it to the Supreme Court. There seem to be potential votes on the Supreme Court at this point to rule in his favor. So let's call Pennsylvania a Trump win. If he wins Georgia and North Carolina and Pennsylvania, I'm doing the math, 28, 48, he's at 268, and he would need Michigan. And at this point, because of what happened in Detroit, remember, he did well in Wayne County. I keep going back to Wayne County. That could put him over the top. But once again, Pat, that's my best guess at this point.
Well, my feeling is that he's going to take it, but boy, he's going to be sorely, sorely tested. And the thing is, after he is, assuming he wins, that he's going to be tested by the leadership of the world. I mean, we're going to see the North Koreans, we're going to see the Chinese, we're going to see every dictatorship out there, the Russians and others going after him.
Yeah.
And it's going to be tough.
And I would just quickly point out, you can't really blame him for saying, claiming voter fraud because, there have been so many of his critics out to get him from day one as it relates to impeachment and now what he's calling the Russia hoax and all of that. So, I mean, if you put yourself in his shoes, there's been so many people targeting him from day one that he thinks this is just another way to target him. And quite frankly, what we've seen is it does seem to be that way because there's just a lot of shenanigans going on. And now we're about to find out what happens.
Yeah, David, thank you so much.
You bet.
Well, I've got senior editor John Waggy is going to join us now to talk about the House and Senate. John, the polls show Biden with huge leads in even states like Texas as a toss-up. And then what happened to that so-called blue wave?
Well, Pat, it's something we talked about late last week. The pollsters were pretty much wrong on this. They had a built-in Biden lead that wasn't really there. And of course, yes, Texas is getting a little bit closer than it was in the 1980s and the 1990s. Ted Cruz, for instance, had to hold on 2 years ago to keep his Senate seat. But it's a baked-in thing, that an oversampling of Democrats that the pollsters, generally speaking, had it wrong on that blue wave. They had Biden with leads that didn't hold up through Election Day voting.
Well, now, we were looking at the Senate, and you've got Tuberville taking a seat in Alabama. You've got Tillis apparently holding on in North Carolina. You've got Lindsey Graham winning again after a huge influx of money. You've got Mitch McConnell holding on in Kentucky again after a huge bunch of money. It looks like even Susan Collins might win again in Maine.
That's right.
But you call Cory Gardner. He's lost already in Colorado to Hickenlooper. And I don't know if you were figuring on McSally going down in Arizona, but it looks like she's lost there.
Yeah, I had picked her to win. She lost. But all the races that are still outstanding that haven't been called yet, and I'm talking about Tillis in North Carolina is ahead of his opponent, Cal Cunningham. And also Montana, Steve Daines held on and won. In Alaska, the votes are still being counted. They're very slow to be counted in Alaska. Dan Sullivan is maintaining a lead there. Joni Ernst did win in Iowa. In Georgia, there's going to be a runoff between Kelly Loeffler, the current senator, and her Democratic opponent. That'll be in December, and that looks good for the Republicans because they had two GOP candidates with Doug Collins, and so she should be able to take that seat in December. The other Georgia race, David Perdue held on against John Ossoff. So really, all the Republicans currently in the outstanding races are in the lead. So they do have a possibility, with the exception of John James, who would be an upset, and he has tens of thousands of vote lead that may be shrinking along with President Trump's in Michigan. But that would be another one that would pull a Democratic seat away and give it to a Republican. So we're looking at the possibility of the prediction I made last week, 53-47, holding up and staying that way for the next Senate session.
All right, and the last, of course, the House. You thought that the Republicans would, the Republicans would take the House, and I didn't agree with you, but how is that shaping up?
Well, the last check with the Associated Press, it's 181 Democratic seats, 188 Democratic seats, 181 GOP seats. That leaves about 59 seats still to be decided. I looked up several races in California, including Darrell Issa and a couple others where there's 3 or 4 where Republicans are in the lead. Now, some of them are currently held by Republicans, but those races have not been called yet. There are plenty of races that Republicans are likely to win if their leads hold up. So right now they have a net gain of 4. We'll see, how it closes out. I don't think they're going to get to 17, but what they were saying last night and a lot of the predictions was that the Democrats were going to add to their lead, and right now they're not.
Well, that's interesting. Well, I thought surely Orange County in California is pretty strong Republican, and they lost in that business about pre-existing conditions. the president was so busy talking about the border wall that he let the Democrats come in with an issue that they weren't prepared for. But I think this time around, well, by the way, nobody even mentioned the electoral vote for California. It was presumed that Biden would win it.
They called it early for California.
Well, I figured they would. Yeah. How many electoral votes do they have, by the way?
55, I believe.
55. Well, it's big. You add that to New York and New Jersey, and then that's the core of the Biden support. Okay.
That's what's put him in the lead so far, yeah.
All right. Well, John, thank you, and thank you for your analysis.
Well, thank you.
Very powerful.
And remember, they called Virginia within 2 seconds last night, even though it had Trump leading by this huge margin, but they knew what was going to happen.
Well, it's that bunch up in Northern Virginia. They're federal workers, and they really want a big federal government. And they don't want anybody that would limit the size of the federal government. That's their livelihood, and that's where they vote. But the rest of the state, the people who won the state senate and the House, they're doing some really nutty things out of Richmond. And I was hoping that Nick Freitas in the 7th district might come out and be a power, although they're not calling some of those races. That was the 7th. And Scott Taylor here in the 2nd, we thought he was ahead, but it looks like Luria is going ahead. So we don't know. But anyhow, it's been an interesting time, ladies and gentlemen, and it's still time to pray. And so what we do want to do, the big thing is that this God lifts up one, he puts down another. And that's, go back to Nebuchadnezzar. You don't understand that the God who holds your life in your hand, he's going to decide.
Yeah.
And the Bible says that he holds the ruler in his hand like water. So let's pray for America again. Father, we pray for this land. We've seen this election. The people are out, and you've got a free land, and they're exercising their constitutional authority and to select their leaders. And what we ask for is wise, godly leaders. And we pray, Lord, that you might give us wise, godly leaders, and you'd put in place those who love and honor you. So we thank you, Lord, for the election so far, and we know that you're going to bless this nation. But we ask that you would make us a people who are worthy of your blessings, and not a bunch of rebels who are going against your word. Do that, Lord, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.